In the heart of a merciless winter storm, the world had been reduced to a blurred tapestry of swirling snow and darkness. Shadow, the once proud canine German shepherd, lay abandoned on the edge of a desolate road. The biting wind howled around him, carrying with it the eerie whispers of a night that seemed to mourn his lost honor. His fur, matted and flecked with icy crystals, barely offered any warmth against the relentless chill. As the storm raged, every flake of snow felt like a frozen shard of memory, a reminder of the betrayal that had left him isolated and forsaken. The scene opened with a wide, unyielding shot of the wintry wasteland, where the sky was a heavy, oppressive black, and the ground was buried beneath an endless sea of snow. Shadow's once bright eyes now reflected a profound sorrow, as if each droplet of ice carried away a piece of his former valor. The distant echoes of his handler's commands, once filled with purpose and pride, had long since faded into the howling winds. Now only silence remained, punctuated by the sound of his labored breaths and the steady, mournful patter of falling snow. In those initial moments of despair, the camera lingered on the poignant details of his solitude. The faint scars along his body told stories of past glories and battles fought with unwavering loyalty, yet now each scar also served as a painful reminder of the day when his comrades turned their backs on him. The voiceover, a raw and introspective monologue, broke the silence. I was forged in the fires of duty, built to protect and serve. But today, the cold winds carry away the echoes of my past, leaving me with nothing but the chill of betrayal. This internal lament resonated deeply, revealing a soul that was both broken and defiant, grappling with the bitter taste of abandonment. The visual narrative was underscored by a somber musical score, its melancholic strains weaving through the sound of the howling wind. The interplay of light and shadow created an almost surreal atmosphere. Each beam of moonlight that managed to break through the overcast sky highlighted the stark contrast between warmth and cold, trust and betrayal. Every element of the scene was designed to evoke a sense of desolation, yet also hint at the latent power within Shadow, a power that had not yet been entirely extinguished by the pain of rejection. As the camera drew closer, intimate details of Shadow's expression became visible. His eyes, though clouded by fatigue and sorrow, glistened with the remnants of an unyielding spirit. In that frozen moment, his stance, though weakened, still exuded a quiet determination, a silent promise that, despite the darkness that had enveloped him, there was a spark of resilience waiting to ignite a new beginning. The environment, though hostile and indifferent, seemed almost to mirror his inner turmoil, a brutal landscape where survival was a constant battle against nature's fury and the wounds of a fractured past. In this opening chapter of his journey, the storm was not merely a meteorological phenomenon, but a metaphor for the chaos and heartbreak that had redefined his existence. The relentless blizzard washed over him, each icy gust stripping away layers of his former self, leaving behind a raw, unvarnished core. Yet, beneath the surface of desolation, there flickered a tiny ember of hope, a hope that perhaps, within this vast, merciless expanse of cold and despair, there lay the possibility of redemption and rebirth. The stage was thus set for a story of transformation, where the shadows of betrayal would eventually give way to the light of newfound purpose. Shadow, though battered and bruised, was poised on the edge of a precipice, a moment of poignant reflection before the beginning of an epic journey toward survival and, ultimately, renewal. With the storm still howling in the distance, Shadow slowly rose to his feet, each movement an act of defiance against the forces that sought to break him. The once proud K9, now marked by the scars of betrayal and the bitter chill of isolation, began his solitary trek across the frozen expanse. The landscape before him was an endless field of undulating snowdrifts and hidden crevasses, each step a battle against the relentless pull of despair and the physical toll of the bitter cold. In this desolate wilderness, every footprint left behind was more than just a mark in the snow. It was a testament to a journey fueled by the remnants of a once unyielding loyalty. Shadow's eyes, still smoldering with the echoes of past glories, scanned the horizon as if searching for a glimmer of the life he once knew. His mind replayed fragmented memories, the firm, reassuring voice of his handler, the sound of synchronized commands, and the camaraderie that had defined his purpose. Now, those memories were interwoven with the stark reality of abandonment, a reality that spurred him to press onward despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. As he traversed the treacherous, icy paths, the environment seemed to whisper secrets of bygone days. The crunch of snow under his paws echoed like a metronome, marking the passage of time in a realm where minutes stretched into eternity. Each gust of wind carried with it not just the biting cold, but also fragments of lost conversations, urging him to remember and to search for meaning in the void left behind. Shadow's heart, heavy yet resilient, beat in rhythm with the harsh elements, propelling him forward into a future that was as unpredictable as the swirling snowflakes around him. The journey was not merely a physical struggle against nature's fury. It was also an internal odyssey. Shadow found himself battling the ghosts of doubt that threatened to erode his spirit with every step. The words of his former mentor, "Always keep the faith, Shadow, for even the darkest winter gives way to the light of a new dawn," resonated within him, stirring a determination to seek out that elusive glimmer of hope. It was a silent vow, made in the solitude of the frozen night, to reclaim the honor that had been stripped away and to find purpose amidst the chaos. The harsh beauty of the winter landscape became both an adversary and an ally. Its unforgiving terrain tested his physical limits, yet it also mirrored the resilience within him. Amid the blinding snowstorms and the biting cold, there were moments when the interplay of light and shadow on the pristine surface evoked a sense of wonder. These fleeting moments of beauty reminded Shadow that even in the midst of desolation, there could be solace and inspiration. It was as if the very earth beneath him was whispering promises of renewal and rebirth. With each passing moment, the journey deepened into a quest not only for a lost connection but also for a rediscovered identity. Shadow's determination grew stronger as he forged ahead, leaving behind the footprints of his past and stepping boldly into the uncertain future. The relentless blizzard, which had once seemed an insurmountable force, now served as a crucible in which his resolve was tempered and refined. Every step was a silent challenge to fate, a declaration that the spirit of a warrior could never be fully extinguished. Thus, in the midst of nature's ruthless fury, Shadow's journey of seeking became a pilgrimage of the soul. It was a quest driven by the yearning to reclaim what was lost, a purpose, a sense of belonging, and the hope that somewhere beyond the storm, redemption awaited. As the wind carried him further into the vast, frozen wilderness, every step taken was a step toward rediscovering the strength that lay dormant within him, ready to ignite a new chapter in his storied life. Amidst the endless white of the frozen forest, the relentless whisper of the wind carried an unexpected sound, a feeble, anguished cry that broke through the steady hum of the storm. Shadow paused, his keen ears pricking at the sound of distress. In the midst of the swirling snow and eerie silence, the call for help was as fragile as a dying ember, yet it carried the weight of a soul in peril. Drawn by an instinct he could neither ignore nor fully understand, Shadow followed the sound. His paws crunched softly on the untouched snow as he moved cautiously between towering, frost-covered pines. The forest, usually a realm of harsh isolation, now seemed to shelter a hidden mystery beneath its thick blanket of ice. Each step Shadow took was deliberate, a mix of wariness and a deep, unspoken empathy born from his own bitter abandonment. Before long, the source of the cry emerged, a lone figure slumped against a snow-laden log, barely visible in the dim light. The man's clothes were torn and stained with blood, his body trembling from both the cold and pain. His eyes, wide with fear and desperation, met Shadow's as if seeking salvation in a moment of utter vulnerability. The wounded man's voice was barely a whisper, laden with a mix of agony and hope. "Help me, please. I can't. I'm so cold." The words were ragged, each one a battle against the biting frost that gripped his frame. Shadow, though unable to speak, responded in the only way he knew how, by drawing closer with a cautious yet comforting presence. His dark, soulful eyes seemed to say, "I know this pain. I have been forsaken too." For a long moment, the two shared a silent communion, a meeting of broken souls in a world that had long since forgotten the meaning of compassion. The man's trembling hand reached out, hesitating as if unsure whether to trust this solitary guardian emerging from the storm. But the look in Shadow's eyes conveyed a promise of protection, a reassurance that he was no longer alone in his suffering. In that fragile moment, the forest around them seemed to pause as if holding its breath. The storm's fury softened to a distant murmur, and the swirling snow created a private cocoon of isolation away from the harsh reality of betrayal and abandonment. The man, whose face was etched with pain and despair, whispered once more, "I thought I was the only one left." His voice broke, echoing the loneliness that Shadow had known all too well. Shadow, with every fiber of his being, recognized the reflection of his own past within the man's eyes, a shared narrative of loss, trust shattered, and the desperate hope for redemption. Though their worlds had collided under the direst of circumstances, a bond was forming, delicate and unspoken. In that silent exchange, amid the brutal winter and the scars of betrayal, Both the wounded man and the loyal K9 found in each other a glimmer of hope, a chance to rise above the pain and reclaim the light that had been all but extinguished. Thus, in the heart of a merciless winter, a fateful encounter unfolded, a convergence of two souls adrift in despair, now united by the prospect of mutual salvation and the possibility of a new beginning in a world where trust had once been betrayed. As the fragile bond between Shadow and the wounded man began to take shape, a new, insidious sound began to weave its way through the cacophony of the storm, a rhythmic, deliberate crunch of footsteps that did not belong to the howling wind. Shadow's ears perked up, and his instincts, honed by years of duty, ignited a fierce alertness. In that instant, the serene isolation of their shared refuge shattered. The atmosphere grew tense. The storm seemed to whisper warnings of imminent danger. The injured man, still shivering in the cold and pain, sensed the shift in the air. His eyes darted nervously to the horizon as the faint silhouettes of figures emerged from the swirling snow. They moved with a predatory precision, as if drawn by an unspoken vendetta. These were not the desperate wanderers of the wild, but hunters, men with malicious intent, driven by greed or a dark loyalty that left no room for mercy. Shadow, though burdened by the scars of betrayal, found a renewed sense of purpose at that critical moment. He lowered his stance, every muscle taut with determination, as he scanned the approaching threat. The instinct to protect overcame his lingering mistrust of human beings. In his eyes, there now burned a fierce resolve. He would not allow history to repeat itself by letting another soul suffer the fate of abandonment. With a low, resonant growl, Shadow positioned himself between the injured man and the encroaching figures. The wind roared around them, a chaotic symphony that masked the quiet tension building in the space between life and impending conflict. Every second stretched out, filled with the promise of violence. As the hunters inched closer, their intentions clear in the hard lines of their faces and the determined set of their bodies. The man's fear was palpable, a raw, trembling energy that seemed to be absorbed by the relentless bravery in Shadow's unwavering gaze. Though his body was weak and battered, he could sense the silent vow in his canine companion, to stand as a guardian against the darkness that threatened to engulf them both. In that charged moment, their connection deepened, the need for survival and the yearning for redemption fused into a single, desperate will. As the first of the hunters broke through the veil of snow, the stage was set for a confrontation that would test the limits of loyalty and resilience. The looming threat was no longer a distant possibility. It had arrived, and with it, the promise of a brutal battle under the unforgiving eye of the storm. Shadow's protective instincts surged, preparing him to act with a ferocity born of both pain and hope. The night was about to witness the transformation of a wounded soul into a relentless force of retribution, as he vowed to guard the fragile light of humanity against the encroaching darkness. In the midst of the relentless blizzard, when the world outside had become an endless canvas of white chaos, a beacon of warmth and hope emerged, a secluded cabin, its weathered wooden facade barely visible through the swirling snow. As Shadow and the injured man pressed onward, their bodies trembling from cold and exhaustion, the soft glow of lantern light beckoned them like a promise of sanctuary. The cabin stood alone, nestled against the harsh elements, its sturdy walls a silent guardian against the fury of the storm. Upon reaching the threshold, the pair hesitated for a moment, caught in the liminal space between the brutal outside and the potential solace within. With a cautious push, the heavy door creaked open, revealing an interior bathed in the comforting amber of a flickering fireplace. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of burning wood and the lingering traces of old memories, the kind that spoke of countless winters endured and battles fought. A rugged, solitary figure occupied the space, a man whose face bore the deep lines of hardship, yet whose eyes shone with a quiet resilience. He moved with deliberate care, tending to a modest array of supplies and ensuring that the small room was prepared for unexpected guests. His presence, both stern and reassuring, lent an unspoken promise that here, at least, there was a chance to pause, to heal, and to strategize against the ever-present threat outside. The wounded man, weak but grateful, sank onto a worn wooden chair as the stranger approached with a basin of warm water and clean cloths. With a practiced gentleness, he began to tend to the injuries that marred the man's body, a stark contrast to the cold brutality of the world they had just left behind. Shadow, ever vigilant, circled near the open door, his eyes scanning the tempest beyond while still absorbing the rare warmth of human kindness within. In the soft glow of the cabin, conversation broke through the heavy silence. The stranger spoke in measured tones, his voice steady and calm. "This place has sheltered many before us. Though the storm rages on outside, here you are safe, if only for a time. His words, imbued with a mix of caution and hope, resonated deeply with both the injured man and Shadow, who had long forgotten the comfort of trust. As the night wore on, the cabin transformed into a sanctuary, a temporary haven where wounds could be mended and plans could be laid. The trio shared sparse meals and quiet moments by the fire, each lost in thoughts of battles past and the uncertain road ahead. The warmth of the cabin did more than just fend off the chill. It nurtured a fragile optimism, a belief that even in the harshest winter, light could still be found. Outside, the storm continued its relentless assault, a constant reminder that the safety of the cabin was fleeting. Yet in that small, dimly lit room, the promise of refuge allowed each of them to gather strength. Shadow, whose loyalty had been marred by betrayal, now found solace in the unity of their shared plight. The cabin became more than a mere structure. It was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the fact that even in the midst of devastation, the human and canine spirit could kindle hope, preparing them for the inevitable challenges that lay just beyond the door. In this moment of rare respite, the harsh realities of the outside world softened, replaced by a collective resolve to face whatever came next. The cabin in the storm, with its humble warmth and enduring spirit, had become the birthplace of a new alliance, a bond forged not only by survival, but by the unwavering belief that even the deepest wounds could someday heal. As night deepened and the wind outside raged like an untamed beast, the fragile sanctuary of the cabin was shattered by the sound of impending doom. The hunters, relentless and driven by dark motives, had tracked their quarry to this very refuge. In the dim glow of the cabins, lanterns, tension coiled in the air like a tightly wound spring, every heartbeat echoing the imminent threat. Outside, the storm's fury was matched only by the cold precision of the approaching assailants. Shadows danced across the frostbitten landscape as the hunters encircled the cabin, their figures barely discernible through the swirling snow. Inside, the three unlikely allies, Shadow, the wounded officer, and the rugged caretaker, braced themselves for the onslaught. There was no time for retreat. Every moment was a battle for survival. The caretaker's voice broke the heavy silence, firm and resolute. "They're here. We have to hold our ground." His words, though laced with concern, ignited a spark of determination in the room. The wounded officer, still weak from his injuries yet driven by a fierce need for redemption, clutched his side and nodded. And then there was Shadow, whose eyes blazed with a defiant spirit, no longer the abandoned creature of despair, but now a guardian forged in the crucible of betrayal and loss. As the first wave of attackers battered against the cabin's weathered walls, chaos erupted. The air filled with the staccato report of gunfire, shouts, and the relentless pounding of boots against the wooden floor. Through narrow, frost-edged window, Shadow could see the hunters, their faces obscured by grim determination and the biting cold, advancing with brutal efficiency. Inside, the caretaker seized what little arms they had, a weathered rifle and a couple of makeshift tools, while the wounded officer mustered his remaining strength to assist. Amid the commotion, Shadow leaped into action. With a fierce growl that resonated like thunder, he darted towards the breach, his movements a blur of calculated aggression and raw instinct. Each surge forward was met with a cascade of flying debris, yet his focus never wavered. Every step was a vow to protect his newfound family. The battle was a symphony of desperation and valor. The caretaker's precise shots rang out, echoing off the icy walls, as he fought to keep the tide of intruders at bay. The wounded officer, though still in pain, used his tactical acumen to help barricade doorways and create choke points, his every command steeped in the urgency of survival. In the midst of this frenzied defense, Shadow was the embodiment of retribution, an unyielding force, dodging incoming fire and countering with swift, punishing strikes. His barks and snarls merged with a cacophony of battle, creating a relentless soundtrack of defiance against overwhelming odds. Every moment felt suspended in a blend of intense fear and unshakable resolve. The hunters pressed forward, undeterred by the fierce resistance, their numbers overwhelming yet lacking the spirit that fueled the defenders. As the skirmish escalated, the cabin itself seemed to tremble under the weight of conflict, a fragile bastion of hope caught in the crossfire of betrayal and revenge. In a climactic burst of bravery, Shadow seized an opportunity during a lull in the attacker's advance. With impeccable timing, he launched himself at the nearest foe, his powerful jaws and agile form overwhelming the assailant before he could even react. This singular act of defiance reverberated throughout the cabin, bolstering the defenders' spirits. The wounded officer, inspired by Shadow's ferocity, rallied his remaining strength to lead a counterattack, driving back the intruders with a combination of grit and tactical precision. As the final moments of the battle approached, the relentless barrage began to falter. The hunters, now realizing that the spirit of the cabin was unbreakable, started to withdraw into the snowy night, their retreat marked by bitter curses and the crunch of footsteps disappearing into the storm. In the quiet that followed, the cabin bore the scars of the fierce conflict, a testament to the valor of those who refused to yield. The battle was far from over, but for that night, a hard-won victory belonged to the trio. In the aftermath, amidst the flickering light of the dying embers on the hearth, there was no time for celebration. Every heartbeat, every breath drawn in that battered cabin, was a reminder of the challenges yet to come. But in that crucible of chaos, the seed of unity and resilience had been firmly planted. Shadow, the wounded officer, and the steadfast caretaker had not only repelled the immediate threat, they had transformed despair into an unyielding promise of survival and a future forged by courage in the face of relentless darkness. Dawn broke with a fragile, tentative glow as the remnants of the night's battle gave way to the soft hues of early morning. The cabin, though scarred and battered, stood as a silent monument to the fierce resolve that had seen them through the darkness. Outside, the storm had eased into a lingering mist, the violent gusts of wind replaced by a quiet determination that echoed the newfound spirit of its defenders. In the aftermath of the fierce confrontation, Shadow, the wounded officer, and the steadfast caretaker gathered their scattered strength. Every bruise and wound was a reminder of the brutal price of survival, yet they shared a solemn understanding that this was merely one chapter in an ongoing struggle, a struggle for redemption, justice, and a place where trust might one day be fully restored. As the first light of day filtered through the frost-kissed windows of the cabin, a plan began to take shape. The wounded officer, his pain tempered by a fierce inner fire, looked out over the white, unyielding expanse. His eyes, once clouded by despair, now burned with a cautious optimism. "We cannot remain here forever," he murmured, his voice resolute. "This victory is but a momentary reprieve. Beyond these walls lies a world that still needs saving." Shadow listened intently, his gaze fixed on the horizon as if searching for answers hidden within the interplay of light and shadow. The caretaker, equally battle-worn but unbowed, methodically gathered their sparse supplies, each movement a quiet testament to endurance and hope. In the silent communion that passed between them, an unspoken pact was forged, a promise that they would journey forth together, facing whatever perils the unknown future might hold. Stepping out into the transformed landscape, the trio embarked on a path that wound through fields of melting snow and rugged terrain. The air, though still crisp with the remnants of winter's chill, carried a hint of renewal, an invitation to embrace the uncertain promise of a new beginning. Every step forward was a deliberate act of defiance against the forces that had once sought to break them, a declaration that the scars of the past would serve as reminders of their strength rather than symbols of their defeat. The journey ahead was laden with uncertainties and dangers, but also with the possibility of healing and redemption. For Shadow, this was no longer the lonely pursuit of a lost cause. It was a pilgrimage toward rediscovering the honor that had been buried under layers of betrayal and neglect. The wounded officer, whose spirit had been battered yet not vanquished, found solace in the camaraderie that now bound them together. And the caretaker, with his unwavering resolve, became the guiding light that promised safety and wisdom in a world too often darkened by cruelty. As they moved further into the vast, open wilderness, the landscape itself seemed to transform. The stark brutality of the snow gave way to gentle slopes and the budding promise of spring hidden beneath the ice, a subtle reminder that even in the harshest conditions, life could emerge anew. The journey continued not just as a quest for survival, but as a quest for meaning, a chance to rewrite their stories, to find redemption in the face of endless adversity. In that serene yet ever-watchful morning light, the trio pressed on. Their footsteps, echoing softly in the quiet of a world reborn, carried the weight of their past and the hope of a future where the shadows of betrayal might one day be replaced by the enduring light of trust and unity. The journey was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. As the journey unfolds into a promising horizon, the trials of betrayal, the fierce battles, and the relentless pursuit of redemption have all converged to reveal a singular truth. Every end is merely the prelude to a new beginning. Shadow's transformation, from a betrayed outcast to a resolute guardian, mirrors our own capacity to rise above adversity, reclaim our honor, and forge unbreakable bonds in the face of overwhelming odds. This story is more than just a tale of survival. It is a call to embrace the struggles that shape us and to find hope in even the darkest of winters. It reminds us that when we unite our strength, our courage, and our shared humanity, we can overcome the fiercest storms and pave the way for a brighter future. Now, it's your turn to be part of this journey. Reflect on your own battles and triumphs, and let this story inspire you to stand tall, fight for what you believe in, and never lose sight of the light that guides you forward. If Shadow's relentless spirit and the unwavering resolve of his companions resonate with you, join the conversation. Share your thoughts, your stories of resilience, and your vision for a future where hope conquers despair. Embrace the new dawn. Subscribe, comment, and share this story to spread the message of unity and courage. Together, let's turn the shadows of betrayal into a legacy of strength and renewal.